What happens when one of the world's most powerful CEOs trades his suit for a factory uniform? Elon Musk's undercover mission at Tesla revealed shocking truths about his own company, and what he found might just change everything. It was a decision no one saw coming. Not his executives, not the employees on the production floor, and certainly not the wider world. Elon Musk, the enigmatic force behind Tesla, stood in front of his mirror one morning, staring at his reflection. His usual sleek suit and clean-cut look were replaced with something far more mundane, the uniform of a Tesla assembly worker. His safety goggles, perched awkwardly on his nose, didn't fit as seamlessly as his usual designer frames. A lunchbox hung from his hand, and his steel-toed boots felt heavier than expected. As he adjusted the straps on his work belt, he practiced the one thing he rarely needed to do: blend in. The idea had come to him during a late-night brainstorming session with his closest advisors. Reports from the factory floor had trickled in, complaints about long hours, unexplainable delays, and the unspoken frustrations that simmered beneath the surface. For a man known for his obsession with precision, progress, and perfection, these inefficiencies gnawed at him. His usual solution, meetings, memos, and orders from the top down, seemed inadequate. To uncover the truth, Elon knew he needed to experience the factory floor firsthand. "I need to know what they see, what they feel," he muttered to himself, pulling on his boots. He could hear his assistants debating the logistics in the other room, the security risks, the potential media frenzy, but none of it mattered. This wasn't about image or publicity. This was about understanding the realities of his company. Slipping into the crowd that morning was easier than expected. The Tesla Gigafactory in Sparks, Nevada, was a whirlwind of activity as hundreds of workers filed in. Elon felt a pang of guilt watching the routine unfold, the exhaustion on some faces, the easy camaraderie on others. Nobody gave him a second glance as he joined a line heading toward the main floor. It was a humbling moment. Here, for the first time in years, Elon Musk wasn't the CEO or visionary. He was just another worker. Inside the factory, the atmosphere was intense. The energy was palpable, an overwhelming blend of human effort and machinery. Conveyor belts hummed, robotic arms pivoted with mechanical precision, and workers hustled between stations, their movements practiced yet relentless. Elon took in every detail, wondering how many stories of hardship, struggle, and triumph were hidden behind the walls of this factory. His cover story was simple: Dan, a mid-career technician transferring from a smaller plant. With a little coaching and a lot of caution, he managed to keep his true identity hidden. As he moved toward his assigned station, his heart raced, not from fear, but from excitement. For the first time in years, Elon Musk was just another cog in the machine. "All right, Dan," barked his supervisor, a wiry man with a sharp gaze named Todd. "We don't have time for slow starts. Get over here and shadow Eric. He'll show you the ropes." Eric, a wiry, energetic man in his 30s, gave Elon a brisk nod. "New guy, huh? Hope you're ready. This ain't exactly a cakewalk." His tone wasn't harsh, but it wasn't welcoming either. It was the tone of someone who'd seen too many new hires come and go. Elon smiled, trying to mask his nerves. "I'll do my best." As the hours ticked by, Elon immersed himself in a world he'd only observed from the comfort of the boardroom. The tasks were physically demanding, requiring precision and speed. Sweat trickled down his forehead as he adjusted bolts and tightened screws, each movement under the scrutiny of Eric, who had little patience for mistakes. By the time the shift ended, Elon's hands were sore, and his legs felt like jelly. But more than the physical strain, it was the stories he overheard that stayed with him: an exhausted single mother working overtime to cover her rent, a young man saving up to return to school, a veteran quietly coping with old injuries. This was Tesla's heart, the people who turned his vision into reality. They were far more than just statistics on a quarterly report. But Elon wasn't just there to observe. He was there to learn. The second day began with a new set of challenges. The morning air was thick with anticipation. The initial novelty of being undercover had given way to a stark reality. The work was grueling, the pace relentless. This was what he'd come for, to live the experience his employees faced every day, not just in the sanitized reports or polished quarterly meetings. "You're on the assembly line today," Eric said, handing him a pair of gloves. Simple, just bolts on the chassis. One every 3 seconds. No time for hesitation. The line moved faster than Elon anticipated, a blur of metal and motion. At first, he fumbled, the bolts slipping through his fingers as the conveyor belt yanked the chassis out of his reach. His mistakes didn't go unnoticed. "Pick it up, Dan," shouted Eric from across the line. "You're holding us all back." It wasn't just the physical demands that surprised him, it was the culture. Conversations buzzed around him, snippets of frustration, mixed with humor. "Did you hear about the new software update? It's messing with the robots again," a worker muttered nearby. "Yeah, and guess who's staying late to fix it?" Another worker replied with a dry laugh. By lunchtime, Elon's muscles ached, but his ears had caught more than he expected. Workers shared stories of inconsistent scheduling, faulty equipment that slowed production, and a constant pressure to hit quotas, no matter the cost. Beneath the camaraderie, however, lay a quiet frustration, one that no glossy corporate report could capture. Elon sat alone in the break room, observing the chatter around him. A group of workers huddled near the vending machines, discussing a recent accident on the floor. "Third one this month," one said grimly. "If they don't fix that lift soon, someone's going to get seriously hurt." The words struck a chord. As Elon sipped his coffee, he realized the factory's issues weren't just about productivity. They were about people, the ones working tirelessly every day, but still overlooked. The stakes were far higher than he had imagined. Later that day, he witnessed his first major malfunction. A robotic arm on the line sputtered and froze, bringing production to a screeching halt. Alarms blared as supervisors rushed to contain the chaos. Eric cursed under his breath, grabbing a toolkit. "This thing's been acting up for weeks," he grumbled. "But fixing it properly takes time." "We don't have." Elon offered to help, his engineering expertise finally finding an outlet. Together, they managed to get the arm back online, but not before losing nearly an hour of production. The delay rippled through the line, earning glares from workers further down the chain. As the day wound down, Elon couldn't shake the feeling of tension that hung over the factory. For all the innovation Tesla represented, it was clear that the people on the ground felt overlooked, their voices drowned out by the relentless drive for progress. The cracks were becoming impossible to ignore. But then, something unexpected happened. Amidst all the chaos, moments of brilliance started to surface. The workers weren't just frustrated, they were creative. They were problem solvers, making things work despite the system. This was the Tesla Elon didn't see in the boardroom. The ingenuity, the resilience, the raw, untapped potential of the workforce. By the third day, Elon had started adapting to the rhythm of the factory floor. The tasks no longer felt alien, though the strain was ever present. His fingers bore the calluses of repetition, and his back ached in ways he hadn't felt in years. Yet it wasn't the physical toll that weighed on him the most, it was the human toll. The cracks in Tesla's seemingly efficient system were widening. Conversations that once seemed trivial now carried weight. The faulty robotic arm wasn't an isolated incident. Other machines had issues too, minor glitches that went unaddressed in favor of keeping the line moving. Workers compensated for these errors with speed and improvisation, often at the cost of safety. "Dan, heads up," a voice yelled as a panel slipped from its mount. Elon instinctively lunged, catching the heavy sheet of aluminum before it hit the floor. His heart pounded as he set it back in place. A nearby worker, a young man named Louise, gave him a weary smile. "You're quick. We could use more hands like that." But the moment wasn't lost on Elon. It was another symptom of a deeper problem, an overburdened workforce stretched too thin. The break room that afternoon was quieter than usual. A heated argument had erupted earlier over shifts being reassigned without notice. Elon sat with Louise and a few others, listening as they vented their frustrations. "They keep saying we're part of this big mission," Louise said, gesturing vaguely toward the Tesla logo on the wall. "But it doesn't feel like it. It feels like we're just parts, replaceable." Another worker chimed in. "The worst part, they don't even listen. We've been telling them about that faulty lift for weeks. Do you think anyone upstairs cares?" Elon felt a pang of guilt. These weren't just employees. They were the backbone of Tesla, the ones who turned dreams into reality, and they were being pushed to the brink. Later that evening, another incident drove the point home. A worker named Tasha was injured when a piece of equipment jammed, sending a small metal shard slicing across her forearm. Supervisors rushed to assist, but the look on her face wasn't just one of pain. It was frustration. "I told them this thing was acting up," she said through gritted teeth as her arm was bandaged. No one listens until it's too late. Elon's mind raced as he walked back to his station. He had designed Tesla to be the pinnacle of innovation. But here on the factory floor, it felt like the heart of the company was missing. Workers weren't just struggling against machines, they were struggling against a system that seemed to overlook their value. As the shift ended, Elon stayed behind, ostensibly to help clean up, but really to think. The issues were clear, but what could be done to fix them without disrupting the delicate balance of production? He had come here for answers, and now he was drowning in questions. Just when the problem seemed insurmountable, Elon began to notice something remarkable, a spark of ingenuity among the workers themselves. By the end of the week, Elon had earned the trust of his coworkers. He was no longer the new guy fumbling with bolts. He was Dan, someone who worked hard, listened, and lent a hand when it mattered. This camaraderie allowed him to witness something extraordinary, the ingenuity of the people who kept Tesla running, often in spite of the system. One evening, as the last shift prepared to clock out, Elon noticed a small group huddled near a malfunctioning station. The robotic welder had been acting up for weeks, its precision degrading to the point where it was barely usable. Instead of waiting for a repair team, the workers had taken matters into their own hands. Louise, the young man Elon had saved earlier, led the charge. With a mix of spare parts scavenged from other machines and a healthy dose of creativity, they managed to bypass the welder's faulty circuit board. The machine sputtered back to life, welding seams as neatly as it had on day one. "Not bad for a bunch of amateurs," Louise said, grinning as he wiped grease from his hands. Elon couldn't hide his amazement. "How'd you figure that out?" Louise shrugged. "You spend enough time around these machines, you start to see patterns. Management doesn't have time for this stuff, so we figured out ourselves." The ingenuity didn't stop there. Over the next few days, Elon observed similar moments of brilliance. Workers redesigning tools to make their jobs easier, streamlining assembly sequences to save precious seconds, even reprogramming a robot's workflow to avoid downtime. These weren't just complaints or gripes, they were solutions born out of necessity. But the disconnect was glaring. These innovations rarely reached the ears of management. Supervisors were too focused on meeting quotas, and the workers didn't feel empowered to share their ideas beyond their immediate teams. The turning point came during an informal gathering in the break room. A group of employees had gathered to brainstorm solutions to recurring issues on the line. The conversation was animated, filled with laughter and heated debates. But beneath it was a clear sense of purpose. "We could probably shave 5 minutes off each shift if we adjusted the conveyor timing," one worker suggested. "Yeah, but who's going to listen?" another countered. "We've been through this before." Elon cleared his throat, speaking up for the first time. What if someone did listen? What if you had a direct line to the top? The room fell silent, the workers exchanging skeptical glances. "That's a nice thought," Louise said. "But that's not how it works here." Elon didn't argue, but the gears in his mind were already turning. He had seen enough. The workers weren't the problem. They were the solution. All they needed was a voice and a platform.